Hi everyone, I'm Flanzraich. I'm the CEO and founder of Greatist. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to make healthy living cool, which is a question that I've been working to try and answer for quite a bit, and I think is extraordinarily important. So so my story is that I hurt my hand really badly growing up, and I ended up having to wear my arm in a cast for 4 years. And so I got really big and had this childhood where I couldn't participate in any sports, and always frustrated me that no one would pick me on their team, that no one would choose me for anything, and I had no friends. And I remember my mom saying, "You're never going to have any friends." No, she never said that. But she believed that I would have friends, and the good news is today I do, and I no longer look like that. But as I struggled to try and figure out my own health and fitness and tried to get onto those sports teams and not be picked last, I felt like everywhere I turned to was a scammy bodybuilding forum, or a scammy content farm site, or I was intimidated at the gym and I didn't really know what to do, or I felt like I didn't know who I would go running with, or who I would share this story that I'm trying to get healthier with. And even the magazines didn't help, right? And shouted things at me like get six-pack abs and lose 30 pounds in 5 days. And so it really became my mission to try and help the world think of health and wellness in a healthier way. Because what I found was, forgetting how much weight I lost or forgetting how much better I felt, but it was that through the struggle of trying to be more healthy and trying to be more fit, that I became more happy and more confident and more effective at my job, more focused. I felt like I could be more creative. And so this became very much the message behind what I wanted to bring, and also the message behind Greatist. So Greatist is a health and wellness online media startup. What we are doing is we write super high quality content, and that means every fact is cited by a scientific study from PubMed. Each article is approved by multiple experts. We're obsessed with the quality of the content, but everything that we write is fun and friendly and down to earth, and written to be digestible and actionable and consumed by just a normal person. So we launched Greatist 2 years ago. We've been the fastest growing site in the space for over 18 months. We had 3 million unique visitors last month. We were nominated for the best health website, Webby, and lost to WebMD, but we'll get them next year. And we have very quickly become just as big as Almost Self and Shape Online in just 2 years. So we've also gotten this awesome community, which maybe is the most important thing of all, who all believe in this idea that there's finally a word for somebody who's just trying to be healthier, right? Somebody who's just consciously making these healthier choices. And so that's what Greatist means, right? Greatist is about not having to be the greatest all the time, but just being a greatest and making healthier choices some of the time. And so I think people are partially drawn to Greatist, not just because of the content, but because of this idea that suddenly there is a word for you who's just trying to make these healthier choices. And suddenly there's a community of people just like you who are also trying to make these healthier choices. And that you don't have to be perfect, but as long as you're trying, there are other people that are doing the same thing. And so, we've had an outpouring of support, and people use the I'm a Greatist hashtag whenever they make those choices. When you guys make your healthier choice today, I would love for you guys to use the I'm a Greatist hashtag. Maybe the best sort of personal example of this sort of in practice. So last year, actually literally last year, I decided to do something called six-pack abs in 6 weeks. So I had been reading it, you guys saw it earlier in the Men's Health cover, but I had been reading all about how you could get six-pack abs anytime, and it would be a super fast experience, but I didn't know anyone who had actually done that. And so I decided to try to get six-pack abs in 6 weeks and write the story of what it took to get there. So the good news is that I got six-pack abs in 6 weeks, and which is not too bad. And so, quick transition here. But it sucked. It was terrible. And I wrote like, every week I wrote the story of the things I had to give up to get those six-pack abs, right? By the way, they're long gone, in case you're curious. And so, I couldn't hang out with my friends. I couldn't go out to dinner with them because I just couldn't eat anything. I began feeling really angry and crabby, and everyone that I worked with couldn't wait for it to be over. My relationships really suffered. This idea that you can do it, right? But the question is that really what you want? To me, and what I'm trying to, the difference I'm trying to make in my life, and the difference we're trying to start to make with Greatist, is this idea that it's not about losing a lot of weight, and it's not about, looking super sexy like at the beach for summertime, but instead it's about looking in the mirror and feeling a little bit better about yourself, a little bit happier. And I think that is where the world is shifting, and it ties a lot into this idea of how do we make healthy living cool. So like I said, we've been thinking about this a lot. And I think that I'm going to share some of those conclusions, some of the things that I think are very key and important to it. It's what we do at Greatist, right, and how we think of the business that we're building and the content that we're writing. So let's jump into it, and we'll see what I got. So accessibility. So I think this is one of the things that almost everyone fails at, which is this idea that health should be accessible. It's obviously built into the very idea of Greatist, but this idea that it's friendly, and it's not about eating and drinking kale smoothies, 30 of them every single day, but instead it's about maybe drinking one kale smoothie instead of that burger lunch you were going to have. And so this idea of like this really, really friendly approach to it, I think is really key to helping people who need it most. So we call that accessibility. Then there's accountability, and this is something we're increasingly finding the value of, which is this idea of a buddy, a partner. So many people struggle with this idea that they want to go running tomorrow, but they don't know whom to go running with. They might be living in Kansas and don't know anybody who does this. And so for us, we try to do this a little bit through our content, but this is actually what we're really excited about, is this idea that we can really help people by providing them some kind of buddy, partner in crime, somebody, whether that's online who's trying to accomplish the same goals, whether that's offline and just a friend that they feel comfortable like opening up to. It's why people use trainers, but not everyone can afford trainers. So accountability is a big one. Web native. So a lot of the brands and people in the space don't get what's going on. They've never worn a Fitbit. They've never tried the Fuel Band. They don't know that there are 30 million people using MyFitnessPal, 20 million people using Runkeeper. Some of these extraordinary apps that I imagine most people in this audience have used or considered using. Most people don't talk about them that much. And so it's our job to make sure that we are the ones who get it and are talking about this technology and allowing that to enable and make these healthier choices easier. Trusted. So these two people, I'm sure everybody in the audience knows who they are. Like them or not, and agree with them or not, what's clear about them is that so much of this country trusts them. And what's really interesting to me is try to name right now, like just think in your head, is there a brand that you trust or recognize in the preventive health, healthy living space in the same way that you know these guys? That worries me and concerns me. It's part of what really drove me to start Greatist, is this opportunity to create a brand that people really trust. Because these people say things and people listen to them. And a big part of that is because when the whole world is watching you and you know that you're a trustworthy and legitimate source, you have a lot of power and influence. So trust it. And that's, takes time. Sexy. So one of our key components is design, right? A lot of trust comes from design. Everything we think in terms of health and wellness now has to be extraordinarily well designed for the end consumer. So another key aspect. And then funny is always important. So obviously this is the Old Spice guy, but being fun and funny as opposed to being untouchable and serious about health, some of this stuff is so private and uncomfortable that the only thing you can do is laugh about it. And without being able to be open and laugh about these things, it's very hard to make a change. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, I believe that the world is shifting in terms of how it thinks about being healthier. So if, by just curious, raise your hand if when you think of getting healthier, you think of that meaning you have to lose X amount of pounds. So a lot of people aren't raising their hands because they're embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is that I would argue 5 years ago, 10 years ago, every single person in this audience would have raised their hand. And so I think we're at the beginning of a really huge shift where people no longer think that getting healthier means losing 10 pounds. And maybe that's a part of it, right? There's nothing wrong with weight loss. But it's not the focus. And instead, there's this more holistic approach to it. It's more about, and we've heard throughout this conference about the importance of stress, the importance of eating real food, right? The impacts it can have on so many other things. And so, to me, we are at the very beginning, and I'd like to think that Greatist is playing, a significant part of this in helping the world think of health and wellness in a healthier way. And I think at the end of the day, that might be the most important aspect of making healthy living cool. So, finally, all I wanted to say was that we obviously can't do it alone. So many people who've spoken on this stage already are making healthy living cool. Jeff Pulver makes healthy living cool because the way that he talks about what he's doing and the things that he's done seem so accessible and understandable to us. And the way he talks about them are so friendly and very much holistic, right? He's doing this for different purposes, not just to look sexy in the mirror. And so I hope that you all help us help the world think of health and wellness in a healthier way. And I hope you will check out Greatist and let it be maybe a starting point to figuring out that journey. Thanks so much.